So welcome, comrades. Thank you very much for this session. We are going to look at economic warfare against Africa. We are going to deal with the debt, sanctions, and currency control. But before we do that, we will get news analysis from Sister Portia. After that, we'll go straight to discuss these various topics. So let's start with Sister Portia. Sister Portia, feel most welcome, and welcome all members who are on the platform. I recognize your presence, and thank you very much for finding time to be with us today. Sister Portia, please proceed.
Thank you so much, King Brother. Greetings, everyone. I just want to give the political analysis very briefly, and then I want to talk about a particular point related to the alliance of the Sahel states. So let me just begin with something that has been still predominant in the news, and I hope y'all can hear me okay. And that is the conversation that's happening about the different terms of what's happening in South Africa. And now I saw in the group chat that there are terms, and please, I'm not saying these to say this is what it is. I'm just saying what I noticed in the chat, and also what I also heard in the different forums that I've been in. So there's been terms like Afrophobia, there's been terms like xenophobia, then there has also been pushback that it is actually not even either of those terms. So what I had said in my analysis right after we had the very detailed discussion last Saturday is, from what I saw, and this is stepping into my analysis, my first one that I wanted to share with you. What I saw is the conversation on Saturday, it showed that there is still, when it comes to terms and definitions within the English language, it shows that we are divided. We Pan-Africanists, people who are committed to the unification and liberation of Akibalan and its diaspora. And so that gave me pause on that. And also another definition that I saw that there was the division from last Saturday is what then becomes, how are we identifying with all of these different imperialistic borders that happen and taking our languages. I am only unilingual, and very much my ancestors' languages were ripped from them. So even in that case, when we're having this discussion, we're speaking in languages, and not saying that our ancestors weren't multilingual before the 15th century. We're not having major discussions on these platforms like Zoom or LinkedIn in a language that we can readily see among the thousands of languages that are spoken on the continent. So we have that context, and then the topic of us talking about which term to identify in those languages, that gave me pause. It gave me pause of how there still seems to be, not that there shouldn't be healthy discussion and debate. It seems like we are theoretically tied up into words that are not even our indigenous Akibalanese languages. Okay, and then to the next point is what's happening into the alliance of the Sahel states. And as I said, I'll be brief because I'm mindful that we want to give more discussion to the people who are coming and taking their time here to speak. What I saw earlier this week is that the Alliance of the Sahel states is aiming to defend themselves militarily. And when I saw this briefly, I it gave me pause at, when we look at the 55 African Union member states, even if there's some of those member states that have been suspended by the African Union, I can't readily come to mind, other than the Alliance of the Sahel state, of those states saying that they're willing to militarily defend their territories. And so that gave me a bit of more than a bit of joy. And it's going to go into my presentation that I do later this month on the 23rd, around this topic about having military, being military able to defend ourselves, along with other points that I'll bring in. So in wrap, what I'm trying to say about the Alliance of the Sahel States is that in what is all happening with the assassination of the minister in Mali, in that it's still tied to the CFA out of the French government, what I can see readily is that the Alliance of the Sahel States is doing something different. And personally, I do want them to succeed, because it's showing that if someone comes in and tries to invade a territory, there will be repercussions. So I thought that was something to give pause. And then just another point of discussion is to just keep in mind about Sudan's continued warfare that's happening there. And then also keep your eyes on Central African Republic, and look to also Eswatini. And we can never forget, or we must always remember, what continues to happen in the Democratic Republic of Congo and the surrounding countries, and how um, there are so many minerals there, and how that conflict is tied to those minerals. I'll stop there. Questions are welcome. And if I may improve my political analysis, I welcome you to challenge me so that I may do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's question. Thank you for that. Uh, if there's anybody who has any questions in regard to the nuclear building, there is unfortunately, if there's nobody, you just first take that question. If anybody has any needs that they feel that anything that's the question of growth, any topic that they feel that needs to be addressed, that's what's going on globally, maybe in the next 20 minutes, and the next thing that they can see. After that, we are talking about economic losses, the functions, debt, the currency concept. We wish to switch from that, and we don't pursue that. But because we don't have necessarily same issues, we go around to each member to share them. First of all, any question in regards to the news? If anybody wants to add any news, please feel free. The news here first.
Brother Pigeon, you're very distorted, your voice. Is there anything you could do?
I'm trying to open that in a quick time before I do that. Or somebody can say something. We are 30 to 50 minutes to further. Oh, can you hear me? Say further. And if you further, I first do my audio and try to fix my audio. What is another sound? Anybody can say things. Yeah, this as I work on my audio.
Okay, greetings everyone. I'm going to just hold off a bit while King Brother Pigden comes in. Can we have someone to volunteer to chair?
Sister Portia, why don't you chair, seeing you're very clear? Thank you.
Okay, are there any objections to me chairing? Okay, all right. Comrades, welcome today. We're going to first hear from our presenters, and then we'll open it up for questions, and after questions, we'll do discussion. So may the first presenter kindly raise your hand, your virtual hand, so I can see who you are and I can call upon you. Thank you. I don't see anyone who is showing their virtual hand that they're indicating to speak. Let me, in the meantime, let me read what the discussion is. I'm just going to go on mute and then I'll come back. Thank you.
Sister Portia, would you like me to read what it says?
I have it here, Sister Ida. Today we're discussing economic warfare against Africa, and we're talking about sanctions, debts, and currency control. Kindly may the first speaker raise their virtual hand so I can call upon you. Thank you. Okay, and kindly, colleagues, I'm at home. It's a Saturday, relaxing. So please, if you hear any background noise, kindly ask for your patience. It is a weekday and we are just resting. I don't see anyone who has their virtual hand raised. Our comrade Pigeon is not available. And in cases like this, we usually open up the floor for discussion. So what I can do is I can pose the question, in your opinion, there are no objections. In your opinion, why are we even talking about economic warfare against Africa? Why would this subject even matter? And I'll call on each person so we avoid some persons speaking more than others. And I'm just going to start at the bottom, and I'll start with our brother Stephen. Stephen, you have the floor. Can you give us your thoughts on economic warfare against Africa and why this is an important topic at all to consider? Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, thank you very much for that. Let me, there's some that's interrupting me here. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Um, okay. Actually, it's a Pan-African analysis that was made by Kwame Nkrumah and all our forefathers, Fritz Fanon. They've always made us realize that we have got all the riches in Africa, but we don't control them. Someone else out there controls them. And other people are actually telling us how we are supposed, to use our minerals, and they even give us the conditions upon which we are supposed actually to operate. And if you look at it now, the danger about it is, it used to be, if you read Kwame Nkrumah's book, he talks about America, but now more players have come in and they've realized that they are using the same method that the the colonizer used to use. So if you look at the Bretton Woods conference, Bretton Woods institutions, IMF and the World Bank, they control the money. America controls the money, literally controls the money, how we do things and stuff. And actually, stronger countries like China are coming in trying to challenge, possibly through BRICS and other avenues, where they say it's south to south. But if you look critically within that, you realize that actually, even within the South, we are still being dominated, we're still being taken advantage. We do not have something that we can show off. That's why I think it was Sister Portia who started when it's giving analysis of the Sahel, what is happening there. They are trying to fight and take over and control their own resources. And they've even expelled France, which used to control even the currency, which was even So if you look at each and every country in Africa, most of the problems that we have in South Africa, what they call xenophobia, it's actually a cry by the South African poor of economic emancipation, because the small number of white people in South Africa, they actually take the majority of the wealth of South Africa. Then black people end up fighting on the crumbs. These things that they are fighting now, this war, which we even us Africans cannot understand. So the problem is we do not have we cannot control our own resources. We cannot be who we want to be because someone else is taking charge. So if you look at the Sahel region, what they've done militarily, they've tried to say, no, we cannot allow this to happen. But if you look, these are only 3 African countries. We've got other 51. What are they doing? We are just giving speech. And these guys are trying to make a statement through action. So when it comes to the poverty of Africa, actually, it's not because we do not have our resources. We are just following someone else's orders whom we think is greater than us when we are sitting on our own resources. That is why I think, Sister Portia, the issue of economic emancipation, it's a big issue in Africa for us to take over. Like what you have said, I can repeat it over and over again, that we need to take back. So the issue of I am a Zimbabwean, I live in South Africa myself. Some of the stories that are being said about South Africa, about xenophobia and stuff. No, South African people are also suffering. So Zimbabweans also come, others also come on the same resources that are there. So the problem is that South Africa really hates other Africans. Sometimes it's questionable. It's because also these people, they might have been misplaced. Maybe their methods of trying to express their cry becomes a little bit of violence, and the one that you cannot condone, of course. But if you look deep down within the South African society, South African poor are actually suffering. People in South Africa are the most suffering. Actually, I've never realized that. I thought Zimbabwe have got poverty until I came to South Africa. South Africans in South Africa. So I think the issue of economy is that it should be given a higher priority, and should be given priority more than any other. Yeah. Okay. I think I should stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I really appreciate you sharing the South African context and bringing up the Alliance of the Sahel States, and then just reminding us about that out of the AU 55 member states. I know the United Nations says there are 54 member states from Africa. The AU recognizes the Western Sahara as a member state. So thank you for bringing that up in context. There's a suggestion to read the Sankara speech. First, can anyone volunteer to read it? And then if not, we'll go to PC Man.
The speech hasn't yet. Oh, it's been shared, I think. Okay.
Do we have a volunteer to read A United Front Against Debt by Thomas Isidore Noel Sankara? Any volunteers?
I can do it if no one else is. This is Sister Joan.
Thank you, sister. Kindly go ahead.
So do you want me to do it from where it says Mr. President?
Yes, please. Thank you, sister, for asking.
No worries. Mr. President, heads of delegations, at this moment, I would like for us to speak about another pressing issue, the issue of debt, the question of the economic situation in Africa. It is an important condition of our survival as much as peace. And this is why I have deemed it necessary to put several supplementary points on the table for us to discuss. Sorry, that's my phone. Burkina Faso would like to first all talk about our fear. Our fear is that there are ongoing United Nations meetings, similar meetings, but less and less interest in what we are doing. Mr. President, how many African heads of state are present here when they have been duly called to come to speak about Africa in Africa? Mr. President, how many heads of state are ready to head off to Paris, London, or Washington when they are called to a meeting there, but cannot come to a meeting here in Addis Ababa in Africa? I know some of them have valid reasons for not coming. This is why I would suggest, Mr. President, that we establish a scale of sanctions or penalties for the heads of state who do not presently respond to the call. Let's make it so that through a set of points of good behavior, those who come regularly, like us, for example, can be supported in some of our efforts. For example, the projects that we submit to the African Development Bank should be multiplied by a coefficient of Africanness. The least African should be penalized. With this, everyone will come to the meetings. I would like to say to you, Mr. President, that the debt issue is a question we cannot hide. You yourself know about something in your country where you have to make courageous decisions, reckless even, decisions that do not seem to be related to your age or grey hair. His Excellency, the President Habib Bourguiba, apologies if I said that incorrectly, who could not come but had us deliver an important message given this other example in Africa, when in Tunisia, for political and social and economical reasons, has also had to make courageous decisions. Okay. But Mr. President, are we going to continue to let the heads of states individually seek solutions to the debt at the risk of creating conflicts at home that could put their stability in jeopardy and even the construction of African unity? The examples I have mentioned, and there are others, warrant that the UN summits provide a reassuring response to each of us in regards to the debt issue. We think that the debt has to be seen from the perspective of its origins. Debt's origins come from colonialism's origins. Those who lend us money are those who colonized us. They are the same ones who used to manage our states and economies. These are the colonizers who indebted Africa through their brothers and cousins who were the lenders. We had no connection with this debt. Therefore, we cannot pay for it. Debt is a neocolonialism in which colonizers have transferred themselves into technical assistants. We should rather say technical assassins. They present us with financing, with financial backers, as if someone's backing could create development. We have been advised to go to these lenders. We have been offered nice financial arrangements. We have been indebted for 50, 60 years and even longer. That means we have been forced to compromise our people for over 50 years. Under its current form, controlled and dominated by imperialism, debt is a skillfully managed reconquest of Africa, intended to subjugate its growth and development through foreign rule. Thus, each one of us becomes the financial SLAVE. which is to say a true SLAVE of those who had been treacherous enough to put money in our countries with obligations for us to repay. We are told to repay, but it is not a moral issue. It is not about this so-called honor of repayment or not. Okay. Thank you. Mr. President, we have been listening and applauding Norway's Prime Minister, Gro Harlem Brundtland, when she spoke right here. She is European, but she said that the whole debt cannot be repaid. Debt cannot be repaid. First, because if we don't repay, lenders will not die. This is for sure. But if we repay, we are going to die. This is also for sure. Those who led us to indebtedness gambled as if in a casino. As long as they have gains, there is no debate. But now that they suffer losses, they demand repayment. And we talk about crisis. No, Mr. President. They played, they lost. That's the rule of the game. And life goes on. We cannot repay because we don't have any means to do so. We cannot pay because we are not responsible for this debt. We cannot repay, but the others owe us what the greatest wealth could never repay. That is blood debt. Our blood had flowed. We hear about the Marshall Plan that rebuilt Europe's economy, but we never hear about the Africa Plan, which allowed Europe to face Hitlerian hordes when their economies and their stabilities were at stake. Who saved Europe? Africa. It is rarely mentioned, to such a point that we cannot be the accomplices of that thankless silence. If others cannot sing our praises, at least we must say that our fathers had been courageous and that our troops had saved Europe and set the world free from Nazism. Do you want me to stop there or continue?
I think that's a good moment to stop. We know that our ancestor Thomas Isidore Noel Sankara spoke at length, and I want to have room to have the people on the call, which are steadily rising. By the way, we're at 13, have time to hear the other 12 of you to give your comments. So you can either give your comments on this speech that was spoken out loud to the Queen Sister, and thank you again. Queen Sister, may you tell me again your first name?
Yeah, thank you. It's Queen Sister Joan.
Oh, okay. Queen Sister Joan, thank you so much for reading that. And I must tell you, you have a revolutionary voice. It was very strong, and thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So you can either comment on the speech thus far, or you can comment on the topic in general about economic warfare. We're not going to have a speaker today, yet that'll give us more time to discuss this topic. And maybe when you are sharing your thinking, please also, if you may, say how you see the role that CSG can play in this, in mitigating these extreme circumstances that are affecting the continent and the diaspora. Let's now go to Shaza, and I'm going up the list. Oh, pardon me, PC Main, you're next, and then we'll go to King Brother, then we'll go to Queen Sister Shaza, I believe. So PCA Man, kindly unmute and share your thinking on the topic of economic warfare against the African continent, or on Sankara's speech that was just read, parts of it. Thank you. PCA Main.
Good evening, everybody. Am I audible enough?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Sam Matau, that PC man. I'm not sure where it comes from. I'm Sam Matau from South Africa. And yeah, as the topic of today reads, you know, the Western world was never happy when Africa in particular decided to fight for their independence and their freedom and liberation. And the West, from the word go, started deploying strategies and plans to thwart the true independence of the African freedom fighters and liberators. And in my mind, the good picture that I have, if people will remember in 1958 when Ahmed Sékou Touré in Guinea was taking over Conakry, the French were so angry and so desperate to thwart that revolution. When they were withdrawing from Guinea, they stripped the country almost naked without anything. They went to the extent of taking even bulbs, electrical bulbs from the country's infrastructure to show how desperate they were. But they knew that even that could not last enough, and they derived many other strategies. And we all know that from the time that decolonization took place, our leaders were always confronted by all sorts of intervention by the imperialists in a disguised form. And they used these strategies like embargoes, they used sanctions, and they used restrictions. They even came in disguise saying you must transform, you must structurally adjust your economy in order but all those were ploys. And countries like Tanzania, Julius Nyerere had already embarked into a socialist economy where Ujamaa was going very well in Tanzania and everything. But when the IMF came with a strategy of structural adjustment, you saw Tanzania going down and even coming down to where the imperialists wanted them. And this has been the same ploy in Zimbabwe, the same sanctions that were used to bring the government of Robert Gabriel Mugabe. So all these were to coerce Africa not to realize its ultimate objective of free independence and liberation of the continent, and most importantly, the unification of Africa. So we have seen those things. They used even issues of stockpiling when they knew that Zambia was the main producer of copper. They made sure that they stockpile, and then they press Zambia to take down their economy, their worth of their copper down, so that Zambia can be pinned down to what the imperialists wanted. And we can go on and on. All our African countries have been becoming enslaved to the new form of basically colonialism, where the IMF and the World Bank are the main people that are employed to make sure that the economies of the countries are sabotaged and they are brought down to their knees. And you can see what Trump is doing currently. He's employing the same methodology. He's even desperate to go and arrest a sitting president of a country, taken by force out of his country. So all these are the means that the imperialists have derived so that the African continent cannot be united, the African continent cannot be prosperous and experience true liberation. And that's where I can stop now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elder. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And I believe that's Elder Sam there. So I got another question to put into this. So you can either be sharing your thinking on the topic in general, economic warfare against Africa, or you can speak to what Ancestor Sankara has said in the speech that has been read thus far. How do we, here's the third question, if you so choose to share your thinking on, is we on this call know all of the situation. We know IMF arguably is not a friend to Africa, World Bank, United Nations. We know that already. We know how they have taken out people who were actually on the ground working with grassroots to unify Africa economically, culturally, spiritually, morally, etc. To date, out of the AU, African Union 55 member states, even those who might be suspended, only 3 countries we see, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, who have decided to do, from the lessons learned, a unification liberation practically, even though they're still tied economically to the CFA. That being said, what can CSG, what can we do here to get out of this situation? Because we already know what the situation is. Is it feasible now to get out of it? Any practical thoughts, in other words? Let me go to Shaza. The floor is yours. Thank you. All right, we're gonna move straight ahead. I believe we alternate. I've heard 2 men so far, so let me now try to call on 2 Queen sisters. So we'll start. I see Joanne. Joanne has a Queen sister has her hand raised. So let me go to you, and then I'll go to another Queen sister. Your floor is yours. Thank you.
Give thanks, Sister Queen. So I put my hand up because I've been thinking about it. So I just want to before I forget about it. First of all, I've never seen this speech before, and so this is an extremely incredible speech, and I'm grateful. And then I'm going to respond to your first initial question, which is why are we here? Why are we talking about economical welfare or economic welfare? But first, I have to introduce my answer by saying, and I may sound extremist, but the Western world suffers from what I call the empiritis. It's a mental illness, and it comes from the idea that the Western world believed that conquest and theft is something to be celebrated and admired. So there's something wrong with the Western mindset to think that immorality is something that represents achievement. And when it comes to the African mindset, Ubuntu, and I don't want to romanticize here, but I'm just going to use that. I believe that the original Ubuntu mindset, the African mindset, was about not, if you have enough, you can share it. If you have enough or more than enough, you help everyone, whether that be economically, mentally, physically. Having something is not something that you keep and retain to yourself. It's something that is shared to benefit the many. This may be a romanticization, but when I'm talking about colonialism and the opposite of that, which is the colonial mindset, the Western European mindset, has been to have no morality when it comes to stealing lives and land. So that leads me to answer the question about why are we here in terms of financial warfare, economic warfare. It's very important that we're here talking about it right now because we are at a crisis point. There are always crisis points in the battle against the oppressor and the colonizer and imperialism. They are relentless. That is one of the things that the oppressor does to cause chaos, disruption to our lives. And one of the things that why financial or economic warfare is so important to talk about now is because fake debts, phantom debts that they created hundreds of years ago that are ongoing and their only intention is to destabilize the country that they colonized. By doing that, it affects everything about that country. So in terms of Africa, and I cannot speak on Sahel in particular, but financial and economic warfare is created by destabilizing families, then communities, then towns, then cities, then countries over hundreds of years, which then affects our mental health, our physical health, our economic health, our structural health, our progressive health, and our educational health. Doesn't mean we're stupid. It just means that they hammer at every structural thing that is in place. Our own health, for example, is part of that economical warfare. By affecting our finances, they affect every single other element of our lives to help us to keep above in a cope, rather than being surviving mode or coping mode. They don't want us to be in thriving mode, which is why economic warfare is probably one of the most powerful forms of warfare there is. Yes, there is mental health warfare. Yes, there is land warfare, where they take our land repetitively. But economic warfare at the moment is an important subject, because America, as another brother said, is what they would call recolonizing. I would call it, they're stepping up on the old colonizing. Is they are, for example, in Venezuela, and I'm sure in Africa and in the Caribbean, they have been committing literal and physical war through violence and presumption. We know those presumptions are lies, that people of African ascent in whatever country they are in are doing something wrong. But the moment you strike a country with physical warfare, it creates utter chaos, which affects the actual physical structure, the government structure, and then it trickles down to the civilians who live there. It affects their wealth, physical wealth, financial wealth, and stability wealth. So it's very important to talk about economic welfare at this time, because it seems that the Western world and America are deciding that they can commit recolonization in plain sight and say that it's okay. They've decided, they've shaken hands across the oceans and said it's okay, and they're doing it again, which is why when we talk about this important question about economical warfare, the thing that we here in this group perhaps must consider is, how do we protect our economics so that we can protect ourselves? How do we make decisions about where we spend our money and why we spend it? And who does that money go to when we do spend it? Does it benefit an African institution? Does it benefit a European institution? Or does it, and even when we're spending it in any of those places, if we're spending it in an African institution, is that a reparationist, Pan-Africanist institution or individual or business? And so money has always been the source of Western greed, and I will always call it a devilish satanic greed, where they've lost their immorality, and maybe they never had it in the first place. But what we see at the moment is a wave of an effort to recolonize or up-colonize, I don't know what the phrase is, of the Western world, and make it actually really quite normal. And that normalization immediately partners with the financial destabilization of the countries that they are attacking violently. And so this is a very important question, and it's one where this group perhaps needs to wonder what we do with our own finances, because if we lose money, that's going to affect our health, physical health, mental health, our social health, our homing health, our business health. and overall structural health of our identity in whatever country we're in as a group or as an individual. And so economic warfare is massive, and it's been going on longer than we really understand. And one of the ways to do it is to start wars that may not finish, wars that take a long time to trickle out, real wars, I mean, physical wars, violent wars. And that's what Western countries and America have a habit of doing, because they seem to delight in it, because they read that as conquest, as greatness, when it's the opposite. It's immorality and genocidal behavior. But to create wars, to start them, causes more disruption to the countries that they're attacking right at the beginning, because every country that is being attacked goes into panic mode, and it's the people that are affected. And once you destabilize peacefulness of people and community and make them feel a threat in every single way, that's what economical warfare does. And they are doing, when I say they, I'm talking about the Western world, who keeps everybody shackled by debt and has done for hundreds of years, and then creates new wars that then create more problems and more chaos, and therefore more destabilization. They know they can do this. They enjoy doing it. And that for me is the issue, is they enjoy doing it. How do you stop entities, institutions, and countries who enjoy committing chaos and war, enable to destabilize them? Because when you economically destabilize a nation, you can then replace the person in charge or the structure in charge. It's a perfect moment in warfare generally to take away what they regard as a leader that they don't want, that is going to stop them from doing what they intend. I could go on forever, but I think I'm getting a bit blurry. But that is why this is an important subject, and why I'm grateful you brought it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to step outside so you'll hear some different noise. As I said, it's a relaxed day today, so I want to go outside so you can hear minimal background noise. What I'm hearing from each of the persons who have shared their thinking, and thank you so much, is it's evident that the current systems, however one chooses to name them, is not a friend or even a guest of Africa. So it does not have Africa in its diaspora in the best interest. And in that regard, I'm also hearing from the speaking floor that let us keep seeing that there's ample evidence that what's happening through these systems cannot be the ticket, no matter how much hard work or smart work is done to liberate Africa. So another question I'll throw in is, in that regard, if we know that said systems are not a friend of Africa and its diaspora, how can that new type of economics, an economic system that it is about a communal type way, happen? And I say that because I have been transparent about my economic situation. I have zero income, and I was able, with not having zero income, to really see how a person is treated when they don't have zero income. And also, I also was able to see that most people who are Black people, we are a step away, because of the systems, from being economically poor. So if, for example, how many of us on this call, and it's not to shame, it's just to ask the question, on this call have disposable income? I keep asking that question for a year because the systems don't set it up. It set it up that we have debt. It sets it up that we must work 40 hours a week. and devote our lives to a job that we don't love. And then it sets it up that the United States of America dollar is the predominant currency. So when we go to a country in Africa, well, what's the dollar rate? Not that that's the only currency where you can get a lot more of value. The Swiss francs, for example, the yen, for example, YUAN. So we're at the top of the hour, and I am agreeing with what has already been said by the past speakers, and like, we got to get out of this. It's not serving us. I'm curious, how do we stop, how do we get a new type of currency? Because the current currency anyway, arguably, it's just paper that someone has convinced others to give value. So how do we stop giving that currency value and give value to our currency for our communal type of ways of living? All right, let me go to another Queen Sister, Sister Ida or Queen Sister Alma. Would either of you like to comment? Thank you.
I could make a comment, which is the fact that, as you say, Western dollars or pounds have so much more economic value that people often try and save in different parts of Africa. People might try to save their money in those currencies, and you're asking, how can we do it so that people will not I'm talking at the moment, sorry, that people will not have what is it? How can we save money in a different form of currency? Because just where Sister Joan Jones stopped, it tells us about the fact that one or two that some people in Africa might be saving their money outside their country, and the amount of money that they're saving is so much that it could help a whole load of people within the country. And I think that is a flaw, because we obviously can't, because in fact, quite often in different countries, you'll find that money is just devalued just like that, or that money that you think is in a bank account can be taken away from that bank account, all those sorts of things. So I think that is something that people need to try to sort out slightly, or that we need to address if we're going to be secure in whatever money the country is using. So I think that, and part of that is also to do with, let me just get this right, like the debt trap, currency control, all the things that were stated in the write-up for what we're going to talk about today. And I think that exchange values are something that we really need to, or find a different way of keeping money within a country, rather than always falling into that trap. So I'll leave it there, but I think that is a big issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. May we kindly go to the next speaker, and I'm going to, again, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to need to save room for announcements and a wrap up from King Brother Pigeon. Let me go on now to King Brother Coco. I called on Shaza. I didn't hear from you, but you just let me know if you're able to say something. Let's go to King Brother Coco. King Brother Coco. Okay, I don't hear from King Brother Coco, so I'm gonna go along. So that's Shaza and King Brother Coco. Just message me in the chat so I can call on you if you're ready to speak again. Let's go to a Queen Sister. Queen Sister Nancy, may you kindly share your thinking.
Thank you kindly for acknowledging me. I just came on the line, so it's a bit premature for me to contribute. I apologize I wasn't able to be here on time.
Thank you, Queen Sister, for your honesty. Apology accepted. King Brother Ifo, would you like to share your thinking?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
Cool. I agree with what is being shared here about the debt and the fact that it's actually really not a debt. They stole resources and they stole our money, and then now they're asking us to pay back money that they helped somebody to steal. That to me makes no sense. So the IMF and the World Bank owe us money. We don't owe them anything. That's one. And then the other reflection I have was on the currency game that they play, where the currencies in the global south keep being devalued, and the currencies from the colonizers keep increasing in relative value. I have a good friend who did quite well when they were in the US and then moved back home, converted his money into Naira. And right not too long after that, the value of the Naira crashed and wiped out most of his savings. Because, if you have if you exchange your money at a time when you're getting about, 100 or 200 Naira for $1, and now it is about 1,500 or more for $1, that does a lot. So the system is set up in a way to disincentivize people from saving their money in the local currency, which just strengthens the colonizers' currencies. So the whole system is messed up, and we collectively need to fix that. Thank you.
I keep hearing this topic of reparations, and what's due to us, which of course I agree. Theft, there is evidence of theft, and it goes many centuries ago. To date, I don't see how an alleged thief will ever pay something that they have stolen. So do we continue advocacy around saying they're going to pay, like that recent resolution that happened with all of the 54 United Nations African member countries? Do we do that just so we can have it on record that they haven't paid? And then at the same time, on the low key in our secret circles, get our economies on track? That just gives me pause, not necessarily has to be answered. Let me go now to Elder Glenroy, and if not from Elder Glenroy, I will go to King Brother General, and I'm mindful that I need to call on another Queen Sister. So Elder Glenroy, you have the floor. Thank you.
Sister Portia.
I see it in the chat. Thank you, Elder Glenroy. Let me
you.
go now. Yeah, no worries. Let me go now to a Queen Sister in the chat, and then I'll come back to a King Brother. So, Queen Sister Grace, would you like to share your thinking? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, obviously this is causing us a lot of problems in Africa, and because we are split into 54, 55, it's difficult. Well, they have an advantage over us, whereas as all the advocates and activists would say, it's not possible to negotiate with them as a small country. And I suppose that was the whole point of chopping us up. So I just wonder, on our side, whether the leaders are sharing information as to what's happening in the countries. And secondly, when they are approached to do something or to seek advice from somebody, because these days we get posts that will say, Namibia has paid off all its debts to IMF or whoever. And then we'll get another post that says, this particular leader has refused an offer for a loan. And then we get another one celebrating that they've got billions. For example, my country will celebrate that they've received billions, and they always call it help. So it's never clear whether it's a loan or whether it's aid, but the country will be celebrating, oh, we've been given, we've been given. And then they get deeper into that. The next thing you know, the kwacha has been devalued. Last term, I don't know how many times it was devalued, which brings us back to what Brother Ifo was saying. A brother went back home and all the money become less. And in those circumstances, I wouldn't take all the money in the country. I would take it as and when I need it to use it, not to keep it, because it does lose value. So I just wonder if our leaders do share information, seek advice from each other. And for example, what they're doing now, I'm sure they're talking to each other about the mines, cancelling all these contracts and taking back control and saying we're not exporting raw materials. I would have thought they should be doing the same in terms of debt, in terms of borrowing, in terms of receiving aid. And we know Trump is coming with all sorts of tactics to, I think because he's now aware that he's being turned down a number of times. So he puts a condition to it. If you don't do this, I'll take this away. If you don't do this, I'll take this away. To the extent that now we've got Zimbabwe saying we're giving back the farmers to the people. And then he's only got, is it 1 or 2 years to go? What happens to the leader that comes in? Does he then say, no, we're not giving you the farms, and it's back and forth, back and forth? Do you have to give back money because it looks to me like they were recovering. I mean, they were doing well with the sanctions. They had a way around it. They're doing even better than countries that are not on sanctions. And it's for them to say, we'll give back the land. And people are now saying, how come you're giving them the land when we still haven't received anything in the country? People still don't have land. So it's all those little things that either when they're meeting at AU and all these other places, all these deals we see them making. Mahama is in Zambia, Botswana is in Mozambique. Today, Rwanda was in Botswana. What are they discussing? Why are they making small deals instead of that just coming up as a group or as a region? Is it because some of them don't get on? Is it because they've got cliques amongst them? Camaraderie with this one, but not that one? Is it tribal? Is it, I don't know what's going on as to why they can't just agree on something to say we're no longer, just like they've done with the mines. And also, that one has escaped me. Yeah, so you just wonder what's going on as to whether information is being shared, advice, support, We know AU doesn't, but they're doing it amongst themselves. Zimbabwe and Botswana and which one? Zambia and Namibia are now have now got a freedom of movement between them using, I don't know if it's the same card. I don't know if it's the same card or the cards have been integrated, but they'll be using cards instead of passports, which makes sense because their argument is not every city, not every indigenous has a passport. And true, a passport is not an ID of your origin or your ethnicity or whatever. Anybody can get a passport from anywhere. So they've got these ID cards, which I suppose the other people can also get. But to travel between those countries, you can just use your card. You don't need a visa. You don't need a passport. You can work. All sorts of things. But it's happening in the SADC, and a number of countries in the SADC, same SADC regions, are not part of these arrangements. That's why we see what's happening in South Africa, because South Africa is not part of that arrangement. They're still arguing about people coming into their country when other countries are saying Zimbabweans can come to us. South Africa is saying Zimbabweans shouldn't. And now you get countries like Malawi that are not part of any of the arrangements, which means they can't go into any of these countries. But I know they can come into Malawi because Malawi is very, very flexible and corrupt. Anybody can walk in and settle and do whatever they like. So you just wonder. And if they just collapse these bodies, these borders, like Malema is saying, is just an illusion. Maponga has even demonstrated. There's one guy who has got his farm right across from Ghana all the way into Burkina Faso. Because there's no border, there's no clear border, but there's a beacon, you know, that stone, the beacon that marks boundaries, just one that says this side is Ghana and this side is Burkina Faso. And Maponga was asking, does he pay tax this side or that side? Does he say, I'm from this side or that side? So it's all those little things that our leaders, some of these things are so they look so simple. I don't know why it's so complex. If Burkina Faso can do it in 2 years, 4 years, why has it taken 60 years? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That is another conversation, Queen Sister Grace from another day, about the African leaders and why they don't do more. And I don't want to generalize because there are African leaders who are doing more. I would say in that context, as was already said by the Queen Sister Joanne, is that these systems are vicious. So even a leaf growing, these systems try to take out any form of life allegedly. So you can just imagine you're a president, yet when you become president that day, you wake up and see how many loans your country has, how much debt. I say always more radically, don't honor the agreements. And that has been done with North American and European countries, some of them, where they just don't honor the agreements. And then they get out of it with their legal courts. So we have our own legal courts. As I said, it's a form of duress of how those agreements were signed. And we argue that within our traditional ways. That's just my opinion. So I would be curious that we have another discussion on African leadership and what are the real reasons why some African leaders are not doing more. We got about 30 more minutes for discussion, and we have about 5 more people who haven't spoke. Let me return to King Brother Coco, who has now had his hand raised. Queen Sister Joanne, I see your hand raised. Let's go through the 5. I won't speak because I've been speaking throughout. I know King Brother Pigeon is there as well. So let's go through these 5 people who haven't spoken. If you do want to speak and you haven't spoken and I missed you, just message me in the chat and I'll acknowledge that in the chat. King Brother Coco. Okay, King Brother Coco, I'm not hearing you. So I'll go ahead, but I do see your hand raised, and I'll come back to you if you can. I can see your audio, but I don't see a green. So maybe you can log out and log back in again, and then just make sure you give access to your settings so you can speak through the audio.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, that's perfect. King Brother Coco, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies for late arrival and not being able to speak earlier, nor preparing thoroughly for this session tonight. But nevertheless, allow me to have a couple of words. I'm going to read a paragraph from Professor Ramose Mokhobe, who wrote Ubuntu. Let's say that. He wrote Ubuntu, but even this Ubuntu, he talks about economics there. So what he says here is that on the other hand, decolonization has neither abolished nor diminished the will to dominate on the part of the condescender. On the contrary, the will to dominate currently manifests itself in the name of democratization, globalization, and human rights. In this connection, it is vital to keep in mind the history and the logic of these discourses with regard to Africa. Historically, the unjust wars resulted in the forcible expropriation of land from its rightful owners from time immemorial, right? The Africans. At the same time, land expropriation meant loss of sovereignty by the Africans. The close connection between land and life meant also that by losing land to the conqueror, the African thereby lost a vital resource to life. So, in short, since we got decolonization, that land has never been returned. Our dispossession has never been corrected. And we were ushered into money economy because our forefathers were forced to start paying taxes to the colonial masters. And ever since, we have been struggling within that economy. And at the same time, we were starting at -1, whereas those who were forcing us to pay taxes were starting at 1 or even +1. So as you can understand, it's those who build capital who also came up with laws, and those laws protected their capital. And they are still doing that as we speak to the international financial institutions such as the IMF, the World Bank, or even the Court of Arbitration at the World Bank. There are many, many other forms in which they are using to protect their capital or to protect their status, their privilege. It's the same thing. And talk about American imperialism. It's difficult for me to have any discussion without talking about that because the system in which we are in runs around that. Is the axis points on which the world turns around. When the United States decided to declare their currency not as exchangeable or legal tender in 1971, when it was a reserve currency, they did a world a number. They did a world a big number. That means the United States, they can print money. They can borrow how much they want to borrow anywhere, anytime. And they can always print money to pay back whatever money they have used. But it's not the same for anyone else in the world. And most of our debts are held with foreign banks or foreign institutions, which means there is that exchange rate problem, which Ifo mentioned, where the Naira suddenly collapses. It's again another cheating mechanism in which the financial system is not game for the Africans. So in short, the system is not broken. The system is working or functioning as it was designed from time immemorial. It was never meant for the African. This morning, we were talking with some of my family. They showed me pictures of my country in Lesotho. It's amazing how beautiful that country is. But I can't go there. I live here in the United Kingdom. You ask if we have money. Sister Portia, we don't have money. We don't. It's the system. It's how the system functions. You don't have money, you don't get to do stuff that you need to do. That is a problem. And that is how the system functions. So, what is this money? We always talk about money a lot of times, but we never really define what money is. Money is anything that is generally accepted as payment for goods and services or for the repayment of debts in economics. That is a simple meaning I can use. And we have to realize that money has become like a key indicator of wealth. Money itself is not wealth. Money itself doesn't have any intrinsic wealth or intrinsic value. It's a matter of how much do we accept money? How much can we carry money easily around? How much can the money be durable when you have it? And how much is it easy to divide? If you have money around, can you divide it? And how scarce is this money? So this is the thing. They make it scarce so that only certain people can hold a lot of it and only other people don't have anything in it. Is that system, is that environment in which we come into as Africans, and we are trying to compete in a system that was never meant for us. So how do we solve that as Africans? The first thing is we trade amongst ourselves and we use our own thing. Anything can serve as money. We forgot that when we moved from the rural areas into the urban centers and started competing in the money economy, it meant we forfeited our right to live, our sovereignty. We can no longer be sovereign as Africans. We have to compete in a system that is not meant for us. So, and again, if we are going to invest, we always look abroad. We need to raise funding amongst ourselves and build our own things. Capital is there in Africa. That is what the Ethiopians have demonstrated with the building of the Grand Renaissance Dam. They use finance from the Ethiopians or the Ethiopians in the diaspora. But we are not doing that as Africans. We are still continuing to function as individual countries. And we are not pooling our resources together. We are not fighting for each other. Everyone is every man for himself and God for all. That is a problem. And then we look to the global financial institution. We expect that it will protect us or we can reform it. No, that's not going to happen. As long as some other countries have the power of veto there, and they continue to do that. And those are the ones that are printing money liberally and don't care. And those are the same people who can sanction you. And to close it, it's simple. Why can't Burkina Faso sanction the America or the United States? It's simple. It's that the USA or the Burkina Faso have lost that power because of who prints money, who has the reserve currency. But finally, we are seeing some sense happening in Africa. We are seeing some of our own coming together and doing things using what we have in our economy. We are realizing that we have value in our own economies. But we have to go back to the rural areas. We have to start trusting each other. Money, again, is about trust. It's about all of us working together and solving what's not working for us. Let's not say what's working. It was never meant to work for us. It's working fine for everybody else, but not for us. So that's what's the problem. We are not, as Africans, poor. Let me say, Africa is not poor. It's the Africans who are money poor as we speak. But we can do something about that only if we unite and work together and also wake up. Thank you.
Thank you, King Brother Coco. I'm going to call the next four people's name, and then I'll just ask you to speak after each other. We're okay with time, but maybe we just reduce a bit more just so we can get announcements. King Brother Coco, I'm glad you brought in the trade. I gave a presentation in a forum that I haven't been in quite a while after I lost connection, but I plan to go back to it. And in my presentation, I talked about trade. We cannot in these systems look for the solutions through racial capitalists, this is my opinion, lenses. So, go to formal education, get so many degrees, start a small businesses, invest back into the community, think positive. Those are racial capitalist lenses. Not that Black people don't think positive. It's just that those are the hoodwinks of the system. Because again, I contend as a non-economics economist that most Black people in these systems are living very close to economic poverty because that's how the system set it up. And the few that do have high income or some savings, they are not they're not going to save us. So the idea of trade and returning to indigenous African principles is what we can do. And that's not going to be easy because we know these systems are very vicious, and anything that is not for the system, it will try to annihilate. Like another professor said, let us not be afraid of that. We just be aware of it because we know that our ancestors have our backs, and it's something more powerful than any piece of paper that some countries have now said is valuable. So thank you again, King Brother Coco, for mentioning the key aspect of trade, and returning to our indigenousness. All right, King Brother. Oh, I would be remiss if I don't start with General, because as we know, he is a historian, and even if we don't may necessarily agree with what General says, he challenges
Sorry to
us.
interrupt, Sister Portia, but should you not be going to a sister next?
Sure, Queen Sister Alma. Would you like to speak? And thank you for the challenge.
Well, I didn't mean for you to go to me, but since, I'll speak. Firstly, I just want to say to everyone, just call me Sister Amma. I do not need a prefix of Queen, and I won't go into the reasons why, but I prefer to just be called Sister Amma. Secondly, Sister Portia, I would like to thank you immensely for stepping in at the last minute to chair. It's not always an easy challenge, and you're doing an excellent job. Thirdly, to thank everybody for the contribution so far. This is a massive topic, and I hope and think that we will need to come to it again and again and again. Where do I start? And I'll try and be not too long, but slightly long. Economic warfare, I think, is about economic justice, which is about controlling the land, mass we call Africa, all of its resources, everything that is produced, include and the labor of those who generate the products for the benefit of the masses of Africans. And I feel the need to say that because there are some of our Africans who are part of the economic exploitation of their fellow African masses, i.e., I'm talking about the different classes. And I think we constantly have to remind ourselves of that. So a few people have talked about the African leaders. If we look at how some, not all, but a significant number of our African leaders, heads of state, are living, They are part of the exploitative machinery. The big term we use to describe it is neocolonialism. We have to be clear about that. And I think if we can even look to some of the most recently independent states and see how some of our leaders who were in the forefront of the struggles for the independence have actually renegade and basically are living off the backs of what should be there for the masses of Africans. This is a difficult. It's both challenging and it's difficult and it's interesting, but I think we have to understand that, and I think most of us do, that we gained political independence. We're now in a struggle for, pigeons coming in, let me admit him, for cultural, social and economic independence. People have talked about savings and trade, and all of those things are important, but the reality for the majority of Africans, and I'm going to actually turn to South Africa, is that they're economically poor. So I understand that the unemployment rate in South Africa is 60% plus. That means 60% or more of the ordinary peoples in South Africa are struggling to buy the necessities of life, meet the necessities of life, are living from hand to mouth. Some would call it subsistence, etc., etc. And that is why we see what is happening in South Africa. I'm not going to where we got, I'll use the term, the indigenous Africans to that part of the African continent, attacking, blaming the Africans who have migrated there. That's what the system does to us. They are being told or misled into thinking that their problems are caused by one group of poor Africans, or maybe slightly not as poor as them, moving into Africa, rather than looking at some of the leadership. And if we look at our leaders, and if we look at the wealth, and I'm sorry, I have to say this, Robert Mugabe's son is living very well. So we have to be critical of where some of the leaders and their families and the spaces they've moved into. I understand he's about to be deported from South Africa because of some dodgy things he's done. We got up in Cameroon, Paul Biya, I'm just naming two, who are living exceptionally well, their families are living exceptionally well. So part of this struggle for economic justice for the African people is a struggle against those who have betrayed the African Revolution, who are part of the exploitative machinery. And we constantly need to be telling ourselves and our fellow African brothers and sisters, emphasizing sisters, because quite often the women are the ones who, I'm not saying that the brothers don't suffer, but the women, because of the fact that they are the primary caregivers, etc., suffer immensely. We constantly have to root this in the struggle, not just against the external forces, the imperialist forces, the West, but some of the internal forces within all of our African microstates who are part of the problem. We have billionaires in Africa, but they're taking their money to live very well and not doing much for the ordinary people. So I, once again, would like to thank everybody for their contributions. I would like to really thank, and in some ways it's quite useful not to always have a presentation, but to have a discussion going on amongst us. But just to really emphasize that we are in that stage of the struggle where we are struggling against not just an external force, but internal forces. The term which is used is neocolonialism. We are on a Thursday discussing a book by Kwame Nkrumah, Conscientism. I think there are, he wrote many books. I think there are another two which are equally important for us to look at, if not collectively, individually, which is his book, which talks about class struggle in Africa, and also the book which where he talks about, or what's titled, The Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. And I would just really emphasize that at all times when we are talking about economic warfare, economic justice, we're rooting it in ordinary, everyday Africans who, the majority of Africans do not have bank accounts where they can save money. For the majority of Africans, they don't even have the luxury of being able to say that their savings have gone down in value because they don't have savings. A significant number of Africans wouldn't even have the capacity to join a call like this, because even if they have the means to have mobile devices, the amount of resource it will take for them to participate in a 2-hour meeting online is probably more than they can afford. So let's constantly remind ourselves that the struggle is about making lives better for ordinary Africans, the ordinary African in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and the struggle on is there and it's advancing, and that's good. But also Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa. And I'll end on this note. I think one of the things we need to remember in relation to South Africa, despite what's going on, the majority of South Africans are just struggling to survive. And I sincerely believe the majority of South Africans do not have the antipathy, the antagonism towards Africans from other parts of the continent, which we are being led to believe. Even that, I feel, is being pumped up to create divisions amongst us. Yes, there are Africans in South Africa who are indigenous, who are doing things to other Africans, but the majority of South Africans are literally just struggling to survive. I'll end on that note. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sister Alma, and thank you for pointing out classism. That is a serious ill made by these systems. Okay, all of the Queen sisters have spoken, but if I miss any Queen sisters, let me know and I'll give y'all precedent. So now I'm gonna go to Shetsaba, and then after that it's gonna be Archbishop. I was gonna go with General, but let me just call it like this. The last remaining comments are to Shaba, Archbishop, General, and Hyper Khan. And then we will have, if we have time, we will go back to Nancy Wright and Joanne. Okay, here we go. Shetsaba.
No, thanks, Chair of the session, and you are doing really a good job. Maybe let me get to the question that you ask, and basically where you say why we are here. I think I'll pose this thing that I think will run a little bit in our minds to say that from where I'm sitting, I think history is repeating itself. And it's not for us to make that mistake of allowing it to be a farce. The assessment that is given of the Sahel countries take us back to how the resistance in Africa found expression up to where we are. When we read the text of Kwame and the others, and we make reference to all the past. Now, with the economic warfare that we find ourselves, the Sahel countries are answering that by saying that we owe nobody nothing, because the land that we are on, it's where we are. And it has everything that can make us live and even make other world outside South Africa, outside Africa survive. The question that will be facing us will be, how do we take advantage of platform like this from our different countries where we are coming from, and don't end the debates here, but take these debates out in whatever spaces where we find ourselves. And I believe we can answer the question why we are here, if we can move from that angle. But I think the question of what neocolonialism is doing today, which also goes to the question of the debt, is by elevating one critical area that we are making a mistake sometimes as Africa again, which the speech that was read there was talking about the unity. I'll make a typical example coming from South Africa and say that I'm enjoying the water that is from Lesotho. But enjoying that water that is from Lesotho, when you enter into Lesotho, where that pipes are moving, you find that people are not having water. What then does the president of South Africa and the South Africans say when they're enjoying the water that is from Lesotho and the people of Lesotho don't have water? Are we not, at the end of the day, speaking opposite from what we are claiming the West is doing to us as Africa? The same goes to Swaziland. If you look at the challenges of the people of Swaziland and what some African countries, the investment in Swaziland, then you start to see that we might really have to go back and relook this question of unity of Africa, that it must be in action, not talks anymore. Because some of the challenges that we are having from where I'm sitting, they can easily be resolved if out of where we are here, why we are here, we are able to propagate this in propaganda as well as agitation amongst our countries where we come from. Change can happen. African unity can happen. So I think I will hold there looking at a time so that others can also be able to comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Archbishop? General?
Hey, give thanks, my day. I think because of time, I don't think I'll be able to make it for my deliberations today. Because we have
Thank
like
you,
8
King.
minutes left.
Yeah, we have 8
Yeah.
minutes. Thank you for your humility, King brother. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, hi. Yeah.
Let me, Archbishop Milton, I just want to apologize. But I too will submit, because I know that we do have a closing comment by our organizer. I just want everybody to know that I've enjoyed this discussion and I'm looking forward to continued discussions on this one. I'm concerned about the time as well, so I don't mind passing.
Thank you so much. And the last two is going to be Hypercon and then King Brother Pigeon. And I'll go back and check and see if our sister Wright, if she'll be available. But we'll have to close it there. So Hypercon, are you available?
Hey,
Yeah, I'm available. Yeah, greetings once again. So I want to ask, are we really independent? Because if you know how to fix your car, I don't think you will need a mechanic to fix your car. And um, majority, I think what we should be tackling is how to really make our people independent by saying, okay, you even depending on the government must not be the norm at the end of the day, because over the years the government has really failed us. So academically and how the youth are raised must always focus on how they can actually call each other, let's say 1, 2, or 3 people, and understand, okay, you maybe we can contribute this amount of money and invest in a project like this, and come up with. I think there should be some form of basic economic or business education throughout the whole continent, to be able to, so that the young, then, the youth will be able to take their destiny into their hands, not necessarily depending on all these external systems. Because at the end of the day, these systems is what is failing the people. And the people do not also realize that they have the power over, all of these challenges. So I think I will leave it here for the meantime. Thank you.
Queen Sister Joanne, and Queen Sister Wright, do y'all have any comments in that order? Joanne, just 1 minute, please. Over to you. Joanne, I believe you're on mute. Just 1 minute, please.
Okay, I'm waiting in case you want another sister to speak.
Sister Wright, would you like to say something?
I'll be very brief. Thank you for the opportunity. I agree with everything that's been said in linking debt to the maintenance of neocolonial hierarchy. And the problem with, looking at leaders is that a lot of the leaders are part of the neocolonial structure. So, of course, they're benefiting from participating in this condition, in this situation, and don't have motivation to try to end it. So yes, it is going to take a revolution. It is going to take a recognition that under capitalism and under imperialism, it will always be faced with some disadvantage. So I'm not looking to some of the current neocolonial leaders to bring us out of this situation. I'm looking to the masses of people to overthrow the leaders and move Africa toward Pan-Africanism and the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism, as Nkrumah said. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Queen Sister Joanne, 1 minute, please. I think you're on mute, Queen Sister.
So, sorry, I've got 1 minute. Is that what you were saying? Sorry.
Yes, you spoke earlier, Queen Sister, and we just wanted to have others to speak. And pardon about having you have your hand raised for 20 minutes. Now you just wrap up 1 more minute, 1 more point you wanted to make. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate what you were saying. So the thing about Africa is that it's been infantilized to such a degree that we, and not necessarily everyone, are infantilized when we want to make a stand. And so to rebel, and it's not actually rebel against the oppressor or the imperialism, is to understand that we shouldn't be so what's the word, gentle in our response. And so one of the things that I would suggest is, I'm based in the UK, and I'm ashamed that I don't know all the things that are going on in Africa, but I'm based in the UK. In the UK, we were taxed from the moment of the abolition, or so-called moment of abolition of enslavement in 1833. And so Britain decided that the abolition of enslavement was in 1833, but we all know that the enslaved weren't freed in the true sense of freed. And those who were the enslavers were compensated financially. So I'm bringing it back to what we're talking about. They were compensated for their loss of what they regarded as livestock, and they were compensated at 40% of the British economy. So it's 40% in 1834 at this stage. And so everyone from 1834 onwards to 2015, and that's just a decade ago, or decade and one ago, where my money, your money, my mother's money, my grandmother's money, it was taken out of our pockets to pay that debt. It was also taken out of Western pockets to pay that debt. That's 40% of the British economy. And right now we're talking about economic warfare, financial warfare. This is a brilliant example of financial warfare. It's so subtle, it's so sinister, it's so invisible that we don't even know that we are contributing to our own financial genocide. And in Britain, as a black British person, as an African in Britain, I'm outraged. I'm outraged that my mother, who's now in a home with dementia, is still having her money taken for that. The debt finished in 2015. It took 187 years to pay off that debt, i.e., everyone who was an enslaver of British heritage, white British heritage, was compensated monetarily for the loss of their so-called cattle, African imprisoned, kidnapped people, our ancestors. And that is how financial and economical warfare works. It's not instantaneous. It is gradual. It is subtle. It is part of the heartbeat of the financial system. So we here now on Saturday need to understand that everyone that we know, everyone that we spend time with, is possibly not against what happened. So in 2015, it was revealed, in 2018, 3 years
Queen
after.
Sister Joanne, I'm gonna have to stop you there, please. Please, I ask that I'll give that floor to you when we meet again on Saturday. I'm gonna give some of my speaking time so that you can finish next Saturday, please.
No
Please.
worries. Thank you, Sister Queen.
All right. Okay, King Brother Pigeon, over to you. We're 1 minute past our sign-off due date. I know it's late hour there. King Brother Pigeon, may you give the announcements, and then we can close out. We'll have an elder close us out. Thank you.
Thank you, comrades. Thank you, Sister Portia. Thank you for everyone who has spoken. And I want to thank you particularly for stepping in to chair this session. I'd like us, even as we end thinking of what Sankara proposed to the ministers about the club, the Paris Club and the Rome Club. Countries in Africa might survive, and they might need loans or maybe some support for that. Why don't you think about Addis Ababa Club, so that we'll not be engaging in so-called sanctions, but clubs that we can control and resources that are internal for us? So I actually ask us to think about that. The topic Sister John is raising, of course, is an important topic. I have done a presentation on it some times back, but we can also have a special session on this. I know also GSC has done that. So thank you very much, Sister John, for that. Now, in regards to our announcements, is that like this week, nobody stepped up fully to do a presentation. But I think it was, as Sister Amma said, a good avenue for us to present and discuss for the first thing. And I think how we did it was very wonderful. So next Saturday, we are looking at food security as not only a national security, but a continental security. So those who are interested in food area, because we cannot have a united continent if people are hungry. So let's prepare to have something on that. If you can do something about African food security, please get in touch so that we can give you time for presentation. Then day after that, the next week on 23rd was African Liberation Day, Sister Portia will be doing armed struggle, the history and lessons. So thank you very much. The recordings will be available. I haven't completed the uploading of the last week recordings, but those recordings will all be available once. So I'm going to combine last week and this week, and they'll be available by Monday this week, all of them together. And yeah, on Thursday, we welcome you for the next session as we continue the Consciousism, our normal reading club. And also we have a Pan-African reading club on Monday. Having said that, back to you, Chair. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much. Elder Sam, may you kindly close us out, Elder Sam, or if there's a Queen Sister, I could ask Sister Wright. Oh, let me do that. Sister Wright, may you kindly close us out? Thank you.
Yes, I will. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this session. And I think I say this on behalf of everybody here. It's been very informative. I very much look forward to the video and hope, really would like us to consider perhaps documenting some of our conclusions so that we can share it to people who don't have an opportunity to see the video. I also want to remind us that African Liberation Day is coming. We can talk about that more next week. But May 25th is African Liberation Day, and there are lots of commemorations worldwide. So hopefully we can carve out a bit of time to talk about that in the future. Thank everybody sincerely for being here today and for your contributions. Very much appreciate our presenter. It was a very, very excellent job in facilitating this session. Not sure what else I need to say, but if that's all that that we have time for, then we can close at this point.